Hi, I'm Prof. Nygaard, a Spanish teacher here to help you get the differences between the preterite tense and the imperfect tense in Spanish. This video is actually part 2 of this concept, so if you want to watch part 1, go check that out first and then come back and watch part 2. So I'm going to give you 3 examples today and then also some trigger phrases that give you a clue that you should use a certain tense. So the first example is a photograph versus a video recording. If the preterite tense and the imperfect tense had to be either a video or a photograph, the imperfect tense would be the videos of the past, and the preterite tense would be the photographs of actions in the past. I'll show you what I mean. So in the part 1 video, I told a story about a couple that went to Barcelona for the weekend. And if we were to imagine a video on social media of the couple, Salva and Andrea, walking around the city, smiling at each other, enjoying the beautiful sunny weather, that's the scene of the story. So maybe their hashtags with a video uploaded would be hashtag it was so sunny in Barcelona, hashtag we were so happy together. That's the imperfect tense, the video portion, because we're just seeing the scene. We're just seeing the setting. We're seeing them holding hands, walking around, smiling. That's just kind of the weather, the emotions, the description of the scene, right? The photographs, though, is actually the preterite tense. So in that story example, the actions of the story, what memorable moments would they have maybe uploaded to Instagram from their trip? So imagine them posting photos of their trip later on. These are actions that are completed in the past, that have happened in the past, and they might use hashtags like hashtag ate tapas, or hashtag Salva proposed, or hashtag rode a motorcycle, or hashtag got lost, right? So those are all actions that are completed, so I like to think of that example to help me get the difference. Another example between the preterite and the imperfect that I like to think of is the ed endings in English versus the ing endings in English. So this one, it doesn't apply to every situation, but it can be a good starting point. I feel like 9 times out of 10, this works. So one trick to identifying which tense it is by looking at the ending in English. Okay, so if a verb is ending in ed in English, chances are it's a sudden action. That would be the preterite tense. If the verb has an ing ending in English, or if it's next to the phrase used to, chances are it is something that used to happen with frequency or was an ongoing action that would be described in the imperfect tense, okay? The word used to is always going to be used in the imperfect tense. There actually isn't a way to translate used to in Spanish, because it's just implied when you conjugate a verb in the imperfect tense. This is because the imperfect tense refers to something in the past that happened for an undefined amount of time. So in order to say used to in Spanish, you have to conjugate the verb in the imperfect tense. So the ed versus the ing, let me show you some examples, like he cried, she walked, they danced, ed endings in English, all conjugated in the preterite. Él lloró, ella caminó, ellos bailaron. This definitely works too if you see the context around that, like he cried yesterday or he cried for a specific amount of time. And we're going to learn about the trigger phrases and the context around the sentence that will help us know why it was conjugated in the preterite. But the imperfect examples here, he was crying, she was walking, they used to dance. Okay, and that's how those would be conjugated in Spanish. Él lloraba, ella caminaba, ellos bailaban. Okay, so preterite is like a quick action, and imperfect is was doing something or used to. It's not really clear when it happened. So let's look at an example. In the preterite tense, we could say, ella trabajó en Mall of America ayer. She worked at Mall of America yesterday. So see, we have an ed ending in the English verb there. If we say, ella trabajaba en Mall of America, that's in the imperfect tense. It could mean she used to work at Mall of America. Which tense is this? Can you identify which tense this is for this example? She used to work at Mall of America when she was younger. Ella trabajaba en Mall of America cuando era más joven. So the phrase used to is a huge clue. Like I said, that one tells us which tense to conjugate in. This context helps us further cement the idea that we are talking about an undefined amount of time in the past. It isn't clear when it happened specifically. She used to work there when she was younger. So pause if you need more time to decide. This one is the imperfect tense. Can you identify which tense this one is? She worked at Mall of America for 10 hours yesterday. Ella trabajó en Mall of America por 10 horas ayer. The specific amount of time and specific day mentioned are huge clues. So this context helps us further cement the idea that we're talking about a specific time in the past. It is clear when it happened. Pause the video if you need more time. This one is the preterite tense. Okay, you're going to use your hands and your feet for this activity. I'm going to read you a story, and every time you see an underlined verb in this, I want you to either stomp your feet or clap your hands. Okay, so stomp your feet if the verb underlined should be the imperfect tense or something that was ongoing or a description. And clap your hands if it's a sudden action in the past or a completed action in the past. Okay? So I'm going to read. You're going to either stomp your feet or clap your hands whenever I say one of the underlined words. So decide if you're stomping your feet, that's for the imperfect or descriptive past, and clap your hands for the preterite or sudden past. Yesterday, I was walking to school with my friend Sarah. It was raining, and we weren't in a good mood. I was telling her about my horrible weekend, and she was telling me about her horrible night, and we were both sad. We were also running late for school. I told her that my parents discovered I cheated on my math test and grounded me for 2 weeks. She told me that her brother kicked her dog, and they went to the hospital at midnight because he broke the dog's leg. As we were walking and talking in the rain, we suddenly noticed a tornado in the distance. We started to run as fast as we could toward the school building. The principal ushered us into the building and told us to go to the girls' locker room. We hurried down the stairs and joined the rest of the students. The tornado alarm sounded, and I covered my ears. We sat on the floor and put our heads down. We sat there for an hour, and then finally they gave us the all-clear alert. Luckily, the tornado didn't hit us. So I'm going to do this again with you, and this time I'm going to do this when it's imperfect or descriptive, and I'm going to do this when it's preterite or sudden past. So do that with me and see if you're doing the same action as me. Yesterday, I was walking to school with my friend Sarah. It was raining, and we weren't in a good mood. I was telling her about my horrible weekend, and she was telling me about her horrible night, and we were both sad. We were also running late for school. I told her that my parents discovered I cheated on my math test and grounded me for 2 weeks. She told me that her brother kicked her dog, and they went to the hospital at midnight because he broke the dog's leg. As we were walking and talking in the rain, we suddenly noticed a tornado in the distance. We started to run as fast as we could toward the school building. The principal ushered us into the building and told us to go to the girls' locker room. We hurried down the stairs and joined the rest of the students. The tornado alarm sounded, and I covered my ears. We sat on the floor and put our heads down. We sat there for an hour, and then finally they gave us the all-clear alert. Luckily, the tornado didn't hit us. So, as you can see, that rule of ed and ing applied to all of these. Do keep in mind, in English, there are irregulars as well, so words like felt, something like that might throw you off, or went might throw you off because it is an action, but it doesn't have that ed ending because it's an irregular. But you notice that all of the completed actions here, they are in the preterite tense, and the ones that some of them are consecutive completed actions. But the thing about a story and these two tenses is that you need both of the tenses for a story to be good, for a story to make sense in the past. If you describe everything in the imperfect tense, you're just describing the description, the scene, you're describing how people felt, what the weather was like, and that's really important to set the scene of a story, but there's not really much action. There's not really much to tell. Okay, but if you told a story that was only in the preterite tense, it's so action-packed. We know lots of things happen, but we don't even know who it's happening to. We don't know what these characters are like. We don't know where they're at. We don't know what the weather's like. We don't know what was going on, right? So we need both of these to work together. So in this next example, you see these two tenses. They work together as a team. They're both used to describe the past, but at different times. So which of these tenses do you think the squiggly line represents on this timeline? And which of these tenses do you think the X's on the timeline represent? Pause the video because you'll need more time to think about this and answer. So the squiggly line represents the imperfect tense, what was going on for an undefined amount of time in the past. We don't know when it started or when it stopped. We don't know exactly what day it happened, but it happened in the past. And the preterite tense represents the X's because it happened. It's a sudden action. We can plot it on a timeline, a specific day that it happened or a specific number of times so that it happened. And we know that that action had started and stopped in the past. So a good question to ask yourself when you're deciding is, can I plot this on a timeline? If you can, then it should be the preterite tense. So why don't you try this one? Can you plot this sentence, this event, or this action described on a timeline? Pause the video if you need more time. On Monday, we went to the football game. You can plot it because it happened on a very specific day. It happened on Monday. How about this one? Can you plot this one on a timeline? My sister used to run track. Pause the video if you need more time. No, it's not clear for how long she ran track, so that would have to be in the imperfect tense. She used to run track. We don't know when or how long. So the imperfect tense describes the wasing and the wereing, while the preterite tense describes the sudden actions like he stopped, dropped, and rolled. Finally, we're going to go over some trigger phrases. These are certain words or phrases that trigger one tense or the other. So when you see this word, it's a huge clue that you're going to use the preterite or the imperfect. The reason being that these words or phrases, they allude to either specific instances in the past or repeated instances at an undetermined time. We're going to start with the preterite tense. These are words and phrases that trigger the preterite tense. Hoy, today. Ayer, yesterday. Anteayer, the day before yesterday. Anoche, last night. Esta mañana, this morning. El domingo pasado, last Sunday. And really, any day of the week would work for this. You could say el lunes pasado, last Monday. La semana pasada, last week. Same thing, you could say el verano pasado, which would be last summer. And that also triggers the preterite. Hace 2 días, 2 days ago. And with this phrase, hace, whatever time you put after it, it means that much time ago. So you could say hace 5 días, 5 days ago. El otro día, the other day. Una vez, one time. Now let's look at words and phrases that trigger the imperfect tense. Feel free to pause if you need more time. A menudo, often. A veces, sometimes. De vez en cuando, every once in a while. Muchas veces, many times. Generalmente, generally. Con frecuencia, frequently. Por lo general, in general. Siempre, always. Nunca, never. Todos los días, every day. Cada semana, every week. And now it's time for some practice. So I want you to choose which verb is more appropriate for the sentence. Write down the reason that you chose that one as well. Look for trigger words and phrases, and then also you can think about what we learned in part 1, the part 1 video of learning the mnemonic device Safe Waters. So, esta mañana yo blank a las 8. Choose either me levanté or me levantaba. It's already conjugated in both preterite and then imperfect. You have to decide which one you would use. El lunes pasado, él either compró o compraba 2 billetes de lotería. And cuando era niña, jugué o jugaba videojuegos con frecuencia. Pause the video to finish your practice. And here's the answer. So it would be, esta mañana yo me levanté. And then you need to put a reason, right? And you could choose that perhaps specific day, specific time. El lunes pasado, él compró 2 billetes de lotería. El lunes pasado is a specific time. It's a trigger word for preterite tense. And cuando era niña, jugaba videojuegos con frecuencia. Con frecuencia is one of the trigger words for the imperfect. And talking about your childhood, you're talking about an undefined amount of time in the past. So that's the description for the imperfect. So thanks for watching this video. If you haven't watched part 1, make sure you go and check out part 1. And if you like this video, click subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Thanks.